Can you name a more gonzo television channel than Adultswim? Really think about it. In the last few years, it's given us some of the most creatively out there TV shows imaginable. The Venture Bros, Black Dynamite, yes, that was a show. Cartoons you probably never knew existed like Common Side Effects, Super Jail, and Ballmaster. While Adultswim might not have saved every deep-cut favorite like the Boondocks or the incredibly viral animated short Pibby, rest in peace, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I've said before, don't be sad they never continued. Be happy they were realized at all. However, Adultswim has given second chances to creatives like Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel, allowing their long-standing dream of making a show together come to life after their pilot's explosive popularity on YouTube and its April Fool's airing on Adultswim, and perhaps one of the most long-standing shock humor cartoons to become a staple of American adult animation. Immortalized in memes, Family Guy was also saved by Adultswim. This in turn made Seth McFarland a household name. Before that, he was mostly known for his proto-Family Guy shorts, The Life of Larry, and Larry and Steve, as well as writing 2 episodes of Jungle Cubs. Now he has a net worth of roughly $300 million. I guess what I'm trying to say is, love them or hate them, the creators of Smiling Friends and Family Guy are here to stay, thanks to Adultswim. Now I can already hear some of you saying, wow, Mr. Bone, you really like milking Smiling Friends. And to that I say, welcome to YouTube. But beyond that, Smiling Friends is a show made by creatives who genuinely inspired me to be more ambitious in my own work, including this channel. Even if my riskier videos don't always perform well, oof, yeah, that kinda hurts a bit. I just find it fascinating to reflect on the meteoric rise of Zach and Michael when compared to other contemporary animators, and especially in this case, Seth MacFarlane. Because while Michael Cusack now has 3 television shows under his belt featuring big names like Hugh Jackman, he is still relatively new to the creative animation scene. And while Zach Hadel has built a massive online presence, he too is relatively a fresh-faced person in the mainstream of animation. These two stand in stark contrast to Seth MacFarlane, valuing a far more hands-on approach to their work. You can truly feel their influence behind almost every creative decision. They've made it clear that Smiling Friends, as great as it is, will never overstay its welcome. And while they've toyed with the idea of spin-offs, Mr. Frog being a prime example, it's obvious their main focus remains on keeping Smiling Friends the main show they pour all of their creative influence into. And as always, if you're enjoying the video, drop a like and leave a comment. Totally free, takes just a second, and helps the video reach more people. Unlike dragging yourself to your friend's 1 AM gig on a Tuesday night, it's 100% free and takes 2 seconds to click out. Thanks. They've even gone as far as stating,
I feel like the Mr. Frog spin-off would be the most obvious, and that's so easy because it's just like the Mr. Frog eats the bug, and we can do that for 100 seasons. Probably make more money than we do now with Smiling Friends.
I think one episode of that would make more than about 100 seasons of Smiling Friends. Does that make sense?
Which in a way almost sounds like a jab at how Family Guy has been run within the last couple of years, at 1 million episodes now, and how it could have easily ended a long time ago, now that it's just a vapid comedy meant to entertain Zoomers on TikTok and Boomers too tired to get up and change the channel. Meanwhile, despite his humble beginnings from Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane has gone on to produce films and various spin-offs with mixed success. And while American Dad has earned a dedicated fanbase, many even recognizing its comedic genius, it's not a show that can be credited solely to Seth. Writers Mike Barker and Matt Weltzman deserve recognition for crafting a series with a unique comedic identity, one that doesn't feel like a factory-produced attempt to appeal to the lowest common denominator, as Family Guy and The Cleveland Show often do. In fact, Seth largely stepped back from American Dad to allow it to maintain its distinct voice. And that's probably the key difference between these creatives who emerged from Adultswim. While Michael Cusack is following in Seth's footsteps as an animator and voice actor producing multiple shows simultaneously, he still pours all of his creative vision into every project. Every grotesque frame of YOLO is undeniably Michael. Every hilarious rotoscope sequence in Smiling Friends is a product of his blood, sweat, and tears. Seth, on the other hand, and I say this with all due respect, has become first and foremost a businessman.
You're Seth MacFarlane, you have now an entity and enterprise, this fucking world of animation that you've built. There's a lot of people that work for you.
So I'm either 100% invested or I'm 100% trusting somebody that I trust to handle another property. Like Family Guy, American Dad, those shows right now are under the care of the showrunners.
Creating various shows that feel almost no different from what Mr. Frog was poking fun at in Smiling Friends, often rinsing and repeating the same types of shock jokes that used to shock viewers, but now come off like Mr. Frog eating the fly, and then Mr. Frog eating the fly. Seth MacFarlane's approach has certainly been lucrative, but it's also drained much of his work of any real creative spark. While he still positions himself as a driving force behind his projects, his priority now seems to be keeping his long-running shows alive indefinitely, regardless of whether the audiences still care. In cases like Ted or A Million Ways to Die in the West, he remains the central creative force. Yet, the sharp, biting humor that defined his early seasons of Family Guy is nowhere to be found. And while The Orville is by no means a bad show, in fact, many people would argue it's probably the best substitute to modern Star Trek we have currently airing, it's still a show that very much is riding off the coattails of what Star Trek used to be and isn't entirely original to what it is supposed to be. In the end, a good show, but never really standing out as more than just something you could watch as a substitute to Star Trek, which isn't exactly a bad thing, as I don't know what has happened to the Star Trek of these days.
Change if they get their hands on a super weapon.
Oh, super weapon! But it still falls into his very by-the-books approach to making TV shows. The rebellious, edgy spirit that once made his work stand out has dulled over time, replaced by a far safer, more crowd-pleasing approach. It's a stark contrast to someone like Zach Hadel or Michael Cusack, who despite also aiming to entertain, have managed to keep their work feeling fresh and unfiltered. MacFarlane, on the other hand, seems far more interested in maintaining his mainstream appeal as that one dude who said weird things at the Oscars.
But we haven't seen Jennifer Lawrence's boobs at all. We saw your boobs. We saw your boobs.
That one didn't age quite so well.
And far less recapturing the creative energy that once made him stand out. In the end, while I respect Seth MacFarlane's success, there's no denying that he's lost the creative spark that once made him Adult Swim's icon. A majority of his work feels more like a business strategy than a passion project, a far cry from the sharp, rebellious voice he once had. And while Zach Hadel expressed a desire to keep pushing forward, never sticking to just one thing, I can't help but hope he avoids the same fate. There's nothing wrong with becoming a more business-savvy person, but I hate to see him turn into another slick, uninspired producer, one whose shows flood TikTok with viral clips, yet are endlessly dissected in videos asking when exactly he fell off. And the same can be said about Michael Cusack. If there's one thing Smiling Friends proves, it's that animation thrives when it's driven by real passion. Let's just hope that Zach and Michael never lose sight of that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week.